is Beth Cananzi, and I'm a solutions marketing manager here at Glean, where I focus on our customer service and support use cases. And I'll be your moderator today. And I'm thrilled to be joined by two customer service leaders. We have April, who leads global customer experience at Infineon Technologies, and Greg, who leads our own technical services and support team here at Glean. April, Greg, I'd love it if you could each introduce yourselves and maybe share a little bit about what your company does, what brings you here today to talk about AI and customer support. April, maybe let's start with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth, and thank you for having me on. I lead global customer experience for Infineon Technologies. What we do is we're a global semiconductor manufacturer, and we really lead in the space of automotive, industrial power control, and power management. And one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here today and share a little bit of insights is customer experience is really about how do we deliver seamless interactions for customers. And AI is an enabler to that, and we've implemented that. So I'm excited here for the conversation and to share a little bit about our journey.
Thank you, April. And Greg?
Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Bakken. I lead the technical services and support team here at Glean. I've been here for a little bit over 4.5 years, so really kind of seeing the company grow. As far as the company, Michael did a really great introduction at the top of this session. So again, we're an amazing work AI platform that really helps you achieve more with your in your current job. Again, it's founded on enterprise search. And gives you just an amazing palette of tools and capabilities. And we'll talk about this throughout this session about how Glean can really helps us and may help you in the future.
All right, thank you both. So it's amazing to me just how quickly support has been changing across industries in recent years as we've seen new technologies be introduced, most recently AI. April, could you tell us some more about the support function at your organization and how you've seen that function evolve in the past few years? And maybe if there's a project you've led in the past few years that you're particularly proud of, you could share that.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Beth. So absolutely, customer support has really changed over the past several years. I think for us being in the B2B high-tech space, one thing to clarify here for the team is we don't have traditional call centers. So our main area of customer support really comes in technical support. And so we have been able to implement AI in terms of looking at what is that high touch need? How do we best scale without necessarily adding the added cost? So really, we've been able to implement AI in the tech support space, and we haven't seen the pure efficiencies in bottom line yet, but we have seen this ability to scale. I think one of the other areas that we've seen positive results is in employee experience, which is one of the areas that is a leader and a pre-indicator of great customer experience. So we've been really focused on how do we lighten that load? How do we make it easier for our employees to do their jobs on a day-to-day basis? So we deem that as a success. We've implemented about a year ago. And so we're looking forward to what is the next use case for us to take it further.
Thank you, April. I love that. I mean, like they say, happy employees, happy customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Greg, could you tell us more about the support function at Glean? And have you also seen a transformation in the way that your team's working? Maybe there's a project you've led to help evolve it?
Yeah, definitely. So at Glean, we're similar to April, we're like a highly specialized technical support organization. We are B2B, and we typically work with key administrators at our customers. So we have like a known audience that we work with on a regular basis for when they have support issues. So again, the type of support we deliver is highly technical, deep debugging of issues and things of that nature. So that's can help folks on this call understand, when it comes to like what we do and how we're progressing things. This is what like the background for us. As far as the project I've led, definitely like it's actually like really interesting because a lot of the needs that we have in support are taken care of a lot by our own product. I know like I'm not trying to go overboard here, but as we started the support organization, like just being able to find information was like one of the most important things, right? There's knowledge buried everywhere, and being able to get that information to the support person as expediently as possible was really like hand in hand with what the product was building. And as we added more of the AI capabilities into the product, it really kind of like started suiting our needs. So like our support journey and how we matured our support organization, and we're able to like handle the workload of issues and dive deeper into things and get knowledge into the hands of the teammates was really hand in hand with the product. So ours was like both like adopting the product that we have, but also pushing like forward on requirements to the product that we could see both are needed by us and needed by customers. So like I'm hoping that as people like understand a bit more about our product, they'll kind of see like, hey, there's a lot in there for us and a lot in that we can use and adopt. So it's more like us adopting our own product as part of the product journey, as part of our support maturation.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And I know you've been super involved in that feedback loop with product for the last couple of years as we've been building things out some more. So I'd love to move on to our first topic today, which is customer service challenges. And I'd like to take a second to hear from our audience. So we're going to launch a poll now. So what would you say is your organization's biggest customer service challenge right now? And there's more options than just those two. If you want to scroll down a little bit. And yeah, go ahead, react. We've got a couple of votes coming in. Yeah, I'm scrolling back and forth, taking a look, but it looks like measuring and providing customer service success is getting quite a few votes. We'll give that another minute or two because rising customer expectations might beat that out. The two seem to be neck and neck. We'll give that about 5 more seconds and then close it down. Yeah. All right. Measuring customer success definitely came out ahead at the top. So, I mean, this is similar to a lot of what we've been hearing from our customers at Glean and from what I've been seeing in research. But before we dive into some of what I've been seeing, I'd love it if Greg, April, did you want to take a second? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the poll. Was that what you expected?
Yeah, I'd love to share. I think that I wasn't surprised at how the audience responded, because I think at the end of the day, it's always about what are the outcomes that our customers are taking from this. And so it's not a surprise. I would say that there are exciting ways that we can measure that. And so I think when we get to that section in the webinar, I would love to share more of those insights.
Awesome.
Yeah, similar for me. No surprises there. I think again, both the measuring and then also again, just that customer experience and like being able to measure it and show what success is like top of mind for many of like folks probably here on the call, and many of like again my peers in the industry as well.
Yeah, and I know we've set aside a couple minutes later on to talk about that in particular. So now I'd love to share some of the things that I've been seeing in research. I mean, it seems that the stakes are just higher than ever in support, and the customer expectations are rising. So I wanted to share with you just a handful of stats that I found recently. So first, Zendesk did a recent study and found that more than half of customers will switch to a competitor after only one bad experience. And this isn't my first time seeing this claim. I've heard similar estimates from a variety of sources over the past 3 years or so, and I know that this is particularly applicable in the B2C space. And then secondly, this is one of our own, but we do a lot with support workflows here at Glean, and we hear a lot of variations on this challenge, which is expensive escalations. So lots of our customers, particularly in B2B, struggle with their frontline agents being unable to resolve tickets, all the tickets that come their way, leading to escalations to L2 or L3 agents. And where it gets particularly tricky, right, is when thorny questions need to be escalated outside the support team for answers, which could pull other teams like engineering away from their work. And it just takes a lot of time, right? Like the answer is somewhere inside the organization, whether it's written down or in somebody's head, but finding out where or who knows that can be a real challenge, especially for a new hire who hasn't yet built out like that mental map of internal knowledge. And related to that, The third challenge is turnover rate. And I know this is specific to the call center, and I know you both shared that you don't have call centers at your particular business, but I'm willing to imagine that some of our audience does. And in the call center in particular, over a third of agents will leave within the next year. So that gets back to that employee happiness, right? When you're investing resources into onboarding a new employee, it's frustrating to see so much of that investment just exit the company just as they're getting productive. So April, Greg, I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of these trends. Are these things that you're seeing as well? And where do you think our legacy workflows are failing to keep up with customer demands?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that these quotes that we've shared or these stats are spot on to what we're seeing. Some of the things that are happening though within in this delay, it's not necessarily always just access to that information that might be a knowledge document, but we also have to consider a lot of us are working in global organizations. And so sometimes reaching into that knowledge where, for example, we're dealing with design engineers or software developers that are teams that are developing the next generation of products that are coming out. So really detailed technical expertise is required, like Greg said. But when you're working across time zones, that sometimes is a 10-hour time difference, that could result in days where someone with that technical expertise is able to get back. And so this is where AI can really leverage and help drive that. So I think that as we all think about our companies, it might not just be how you're managing that knowledge content, but it's the access to the individuals and how readily available are they? Because we don't have teams that are 24/7.
Definitely. Greg?
Yeah, again, these quotes definitely resonate with me. I think from my team's perspective in particular is that especially that first one around like customers having a bad experience may leave. Even though that has not been the case with us, we like to always put that pressure on ourselves to ensure that we use that as a way to motivate us to drive that support experience. And again, when it comes to AI, a lot of what we're doing is sourcing the knowledge and having it be present for our agents to be able to give good responses to coordinate issues. And again, to kind of that second slide that Joel was talking about in terms of the expense of escalating to the level 2 or level 3s or to the engineering organization, by having that access to knowledge, we're really looking to try to alleviate or reduce the amount of times that we do need to go to engineering. So it kind of like creates a hand-in-hand relationship between ourselves and our partners in R&D, which is good documentation, good troubleshooting, good access to tools help feed that cycle, which is that we can handle more issues on the support side, whereas the engineers can be focused on building a better product. So basically, as we feed more and better knowledge, more and better tools into our ecosystem, our product and the AI that sits around it really helps us become more efficient and effective. So again, I think we really kind of see this as, we need to do these things to improve that overall experience for customers. So yeah, I like to say that kind of that first quote around half customers will switch to the bad experience is what motivates us. The quote around expensive escalating to engineering is what kind of keeps us to try to drive that efficiency and so forth. So again, these are very top of mind for me when I think about support every day.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And I'd love to go a little bit deeper. So our next topic is modernizing support with AI. So you started to share a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit deeper about how Glean has been modernizing customer support, maybe some of the results that you've seen from that.
Yeah, definitely. So at Glean, one of the cool product features that we launched, also in very close partnership with our product organization, is we have a Glean in Zendesk. So Zendesk is our ticketing platform, and we actually have an application that sits inside of that Zendesk panel for the agents that gives them immediate access to knowledge that they need to solve a ticket. So as a ticket gets submitted, our system evaluates what type of issue it is, what is the content of these things, categorizes the ticket, and basically gives the agent the knowledge that they need to proceed on working on this particular case. It could be if it's a question, give them a really easy access to the article that they might need to provide to the to the end user or to the admin that we're working with. It might be like a troubleshooting procedure based on the symptom that the customer provides. And again, this is all grounded in Glean and the Glean technology to really understand what is the content of and the issue that the person is submitting, and be able to analyze that and give very precise and calculated steps for the agent to take. It also, again, calls out knowledge sources. It calls out other related tickets that that one might need to be able to reference to see if like how it was solved in the past. But again, it's just really that being able to add that extra intelligence for the agent is like incredible. It really like helps us, kind of go next level, especially when new issues pop into our queue, and we just really need to stay on top of that as quickly as possible. So how we rolled it out is basically like we worked with our product team. We're able to get this. And by the way, there's many of our customers currently today are using the same capability. We have the same embedded integration with Zendesk, with ServiceNow, and with Salesforce. So it's really being able to give that agent experience to the folks on the front line to be able to get tap that knowledge very contextually to help them drive the responses and the resolution. So I think this is one of the like really key and core projects we had is to be able to do that, and now it's just like a core staple of how we do our business day to day. So we have Glean at our ready, but we also have the Glean inside of Zendesk, which helps drive that efficiency and keeps the user in context, so that they can like read all this information and take action directly from the ticket itself.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I know one of the things that I've heard from our customers that they love is just the ability to source everything without leaving their workflow. Very convenient. April, I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the ways that you've been using AI to modernize customer support at Infineon?
Yeah, great. I think it's very similar to what Greg had shared. But I think one of the areas that was important for us to really start with was really what was our AI governance policy, right, at the corporate level. Because we knew when we looked at this, right, like our technical support is really viewed as best in class, right, in our industry, in our category where we work. So we didn't want employees to be skeptical. We see the headlines in the news around AI is going to replace jobs. So many jobs would be lost. And it was really core and fundamental to Infineon that we wanted to make sure it was clear to our employees that AI deployment was not going to be a means to replace employees, but really a way to empower. And so a way for us to start to deploy this was to come out with a set of core principles of how will we use it, and clear transparency around this, not just with our employees, but also with customers, and being clear that when an answer is provided and it's generated via AI, are we being transparent with that? So I think with starting with these principles is where we've been able to get this buy-in with our technical support teams. And really our tech support teams are mostly PhDs, right? Really complex problem solvers. And so we started out with a small use case and really let them help guide. Where did we need to go next? And really listening to the voice of the employee. What are the number one challenges that you're dealing with? And how do we then begin to build this around servicing what you need to know in order to respond to customers faster? I think in comparison to that, we also compare and look at our VOC, our customer feedback. And the number one ask of our customers is, how do we shorten our response time? And so AI directly drives that as we go back to our employees and we measure and we take a look at what was our response time at benchmarking. And now that we're into this a year later, have we moved the needle on this? And like I have shared, we have seen our ability to scale. And so I think when we look at the customer journey, right, AI is just starting with us. And so now we're looking into how do we take this to the next level, and how do we actually begin to make this customer facing. But when we're ready to make that move, we're going to go with the flow of when our employees are ready to deploy that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like what you said about your governance principles, and particularly, I mean, we hear so much in the media about companies that are using AI to replace humans in customer service. And so it's really refreshing, I think, that you've taken such an intentional approach at Infineon about agent enablement. I'm curious, as you made that decision internally, was that an easy one for you to make, or?
Yeah, it was actually very easy because it really goes back to our core principles and our branding of who we are as a company. And I think this ties back to one of the stats that you had shared about the turnover, right? Employees want to be developed, right? Nobody wants to come and push a button all day. And so this is where you have to listen to the voice of the employees. And it's when companies are doing this, right? You're not going to get that turnover because there's value. There's such high value in your frontline teams because they're the ones that truly have the voice of the customer at heart. So it wasn't difficult for us to make that statement and that claim. And I think that really it made all the difference because that's how we get the adoption and the buy-in and the willingness of our employees to test out and to bring forward what are the use cases and where do we need to go next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that sounds like a great way to develop that co-ownership as well. So I'd love to take a step back for a moment and take a second poll here from our audience again. So everyone in the audience, what are some of the ways that your organization is currently using AI in customer support? And again, you can scroll down. There's a few options here. Yeah, and I know, Greg, you mentioned at Glean you're using recommending solutions or next steps to agents inside their workflows. And it sounds like some onboarding assistance as well.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Right, we've got some votes coming in. Quite a few people are not currently using AI in customer support. Give that about 5 more seconds and then we'll close it down. Although, could we leave it on the screen for a moment this time so I can read through the answers? Okay, so I think we're pretty much there. So interestingly, the majority of folks are not currently using AI in customer support. So I guess maybe that makes sense about why you've joined us here today to hear about some options for that. The second one, it seems to be very common that people are using AI to recommend solutions or next steps to agents within their workflows. And then neck and neck, we have automating ticket assignment or triage, which gets into providing those responses faster and collecting or surfacing knowledge for faster issue resolution. So it seems like reducing that mean time to resolution is really pretty top of mind to folks. And then finally, we have assisting with onboarding and training support agents, which had a couple of votes. So we can take away that poll now. Thank you. So I'd love to talk a little bit about enablement, agent enablement and retention next. I know it got the least amount of votes of people who are currently using it, but this was one that can make a big difference for companies. So April, I mean, as we were talking about a moment ago, what you shared really resonated with me about how at Infineon, you don't view AI as something to replace your workforce, but to enable them, and you're all in on employee development. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, especially as it comes to your new employees.
Yeah, sure. And actually, I want to tie this back to the poll and the majority of our listeners here that are not using AI in the customer support space. And a lot of it probably ties back to this skepticism, right? And sometimes it's a disconnect between senior leadership and maybe this fear around we don't want to introduce a new technology. It's the new buzzword. It costs a lot. A lot of vendors might be staking claims out there, and we don't know, right? Is there anyone that's actually used and deployed this thoroughly? But this is where it ties back to senior leadership going down into the organization and your frontline teams, and talk to your leaders, your managers, and your frontline agents that are supporting customers. I think when there's that connection between senior leadership and actually hearing the voice of your employees, then you start to really gain clarity around what does enablement look like for your employees? How do you make their jobs easier for them so that they're reinvigorated to want to do the work that's needed to delight your customers? I think it's eye-opening for leadership to do that, and it's one thing that I absolutely enjoy when I get a chance to talk to our frontline teams around what are your biggest challenges, and they will tell you clearly what their problems are. Then there's a clear line around How do we solve that problem together? So I think when there's, again, I'm always going to go back to that open feedback loops with employees as well as customers, and then you'll find the solutions that you can implement to enable.
Hmm. Yeah, that feedback loop is so important. And Greg, that actually reminds me of something that you shared with me recently, which was when we rolled out AI agents inside of our Zendesk integration. You had a really interesting way that you actually rolled that out to your. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So in terms of agents, and the rollout. So we actually had what we call a support agent showcase. And so Glean, for those that don't know, has an agent platform. So basically, we allow people to build agents with like natural language. So it includes like a natural language agent builder. It allows you to have certain controls over what the agent does, how it thinks about things, and how it responds. So it's really like a fantastic platform for like our customers. But like internally, we were like heavily adopting it early in the product lifecycle. So what we did is we actually created this thing called a support agent showcase, where we actually had every person on the team create their own agents based on things that they saw that can make us as a team or them as individuals more efficient in delivering support. So what we did is we actually had people like create it. We like had everybody present their agent. We gave them like 3 minutes a piece to like present their agent, show what it does and how it can benefit each teammate or the team overall. And then we like did voting at the end. So we basically voted for like the top 2 agents, and those folks sort of like in a sense won the prize. But it gave like our team like a lot of incentive to like invent and create, and really just kind of like the art of the possible with what you can do with the natural language agent builder. And then what we're able to do is take kind of those top agents and then embed those as additional agents we use inside of the Zendesk integration. So that now, like in any ticket somebody works, they can actually access those top agents to be able to use in the troubleshooting workflow or the remediation workflow. So this is like something that we invested very heavily in. We did a showcase for this last quarter. We actually just wrapped ours up yesterday for the one for this quarter. And again, it's just really kind of takes that thing, that aspect of, hey, like AI is here to help me do my job, so I'm going to like work on it to make that happen. And if I can benefit my team in that process, this is like all value add. Because as mentioned, there's a lot of pressure on support teams to deliver a much better experience, as customer expectations are way higher. So we have to think of what are the small things and the big things that we can do both tactically and strategically with our platform that will allow us to get to that efficiency level and improve those metrics that April was talking about, like time to respond, things of that nature. So again, I think we made a heavy investment in that, and really excited about the outcome and the continuous work that we're doing here on launching more agents for support org.
Yeah, I love how you had everyone have a chance to build something to resolve their own pain points. I'm curious if you had an example to share, like a favorite agent that's come out of
Yeah.
that.
So one of my favorite agents, okay, so this is going to be a bit more towards the support managers. So again, for all support managers out there, we actually built an agent that's now part of our agent templates in the product. Is called Case IQ. And what it does is it actually takes the entirety of the ticket, it reads it and evaluates the performance of like basically the support performance on that issue. So like, was the agent responsive? Was the agent clear in the communications? Did they fill out the ticket correctly? What is the customer's temperature as a result of interacting with that ticket? So we basically give these measurements, and then we can allow anybody, whether it be the support manager or even the agent themselves, they want to see, how did I do on this ticket? So we give them quick access to Case IQ, and that's like, again, one of the agents that came out of our showcase and is now productized. That other customers can use, adapt as needed. But I thought that was like a really, really great example of, of agent build to production, basically.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. April, I'm curious if you have any examples top of mind of particular pain points that surfaced, anything that maybe surprised you a little bit, where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was such a struggle, or anything like that?
So I think maybe things that were surprising for us in terms of not really realizing if it was going to be a struggle for our frontline teams was really, did we need to go back and revamp like how our content is structured, and how AI is pulling into that? What sources were we going to be putting as part of the platform, right? And I think that some of that really lies around some confidentiality laws and rules. And so I think those are one of the areas that right now we're dealing with, considering GDPR and things that our customers are asking for. And so we're really reevaluating what things do we need to keep clearly confidential, and what things should we be more deploying on an AI basis so our frontline teams have ready access to it. And I think it's a complex problem to solve, but I'm glad that we're already heading on to this and starting those conversations. It's a balance between what our customers want and what customers will compare us against our competitors, and what we believe is fair and maybe risk free. So I think that balance is always difficult to find.
Hmm. Definitely. And I know that permissions can be a very interesting topic. I know that Glean has spent years working on just figuring out the enterprise landscape, and that permissions play such a huge role in that, in terms of who has access to what. And that's a big fear with AI is, am I going to open things up to the wrong people? Is everybody suddenly going to have access to all of this information? And so it's great that you're finding ways to control that. I know we found ways internally and in our product to make sure that we're limiting things to the right eyes. So next, I'd love to move on to what I know was a hot topic at our very first poll today, which is one of the challenges around how to measure ROI from AI. How can you measure success? How can you know if this investment is working out for your organization? So, what are some of the metrics that you're each taking a close look at? And are there any ways you've begun to think about metrics differently since AI was introduced? For example, maybe there are insights that you're able to get faster or that you weren't able to get before. Or maybe there are new things you've been able to accomplish using time savings from AI. April, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I think two things, right? We always look at sentiment as the long tail piece, right? Are we improving satisfaction and effort, right? So is it getting easier for customers to interact with us? So those are the sort of the beacon metrics. But when we click down a layer deeper, we've said that we really have to focus on what we call CPIs, or customer performance indicators. And these are those operational metrics that customers care about. And you've already listed a few of those, which are things like resolution time or first contact resolution. Absolutely, we should be seeing a reduction in those spaces, but you should also be looking at your overall cost of service, because cost to serve should also be coming down. And so it's sort of this index of all of these metrics that we look at in terms of sentiment, how are customers feeling, but also how are employees feeling. So you should also always be going back to your employee engagement surveys. You should be asking your employees, are we making it easier for you to do your job? And it's those operational metrics, and then your cost to serve, where you're really going to start to see the ROI and the effectiveness of the deployment of AI.
Yeah, that's great. Greg, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like we take like weight in the stock metrics, right? CSAT, time to resolution, things of this nature, and we are moving the needle with the product that we have and how we're implementing it. But there are like a couple other underneath metrics that I really like keenly look at, and this is one I was talking about earlier, which is basically support containment, which is what percentage of issues can support handle completely on their own, what percentage needs to go to our engineering organization for escalations. So that's one thing that I'm definitely that we're actually actively monitoring and seeing that an impact on that, right? Because if we're more empowered with knowledge and tools and capabilities that AI can help bring to us in a more contextual way, we can eliminate many of those escalations, right? So we also optimize engineering's time. So that's like a core metric, and something I think not both support organization cares about, but engineering organization cares about, because that really like optimizes that workflow, and then we can really save their cycles for the things that they're very, very needed for. So I think that's like one of the sort of the core things that we look at under the scenes. The other one, which is just productivity in general. So at Glean, our agents are actually solving a lot more issues than than many of the peers that I talk to in the industry. So I think that is because we have the power of AI with us, because it allows us to handle more issues, bring resolutions up sooner, and so forth. So I think these are two things that I zero in on as as we grow. And again, I think just in general, the way I hope that the audience is thinking a lot about this is that AI is really like a companion, right? So I think, unfortunately, like a lot of companies are kind of pitching this as more like a job replace or those types of things. But I think about it as like, how can you supercharge your teammates, right? That's where we drive that productivity, is if you give them a toolkit that allows them to do more with the tools that you give them, and that they can give a better support experience overall, faster resolution times, quicker response times, things of that nature, you're going to actually have like a better support experience. You'll have agents that really like the job because they're actually learning new skills and capabilities. And that's also, to April's point, it's a more rewarding environment for them to be part of. So I'm really hoping that this trend continues. And it's just much more empowering. It's just way easier for us to, again, drive those key metrics and get the results we're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. And I like what you shared as well about improving the way that support works with other teams in the organization, like engineering, everything, improving those internal relationships. Um, Going a little bit deeper on this question, one thing that I'm curious about is, support has traditionally been viewed as a cost center. Do either of you see any hope of AI maybe changing that equation?
Absolutely. I would say, beyond my current role, I have managed call centers before where AI can really help transform your cost centers into revenue centers. Because if you think about any frontline associate or frontline agent, right, they know the most about the customer. And so, what better way than when you've resolved a problem and be able to turn that around to solving the next growth opportunity that's there. So I think that there's tremendous upside here in how we're thinking about AI and how do we think about how do we drive revenue growth and not just cost savings.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel exactly the same. I feel like oftentimes we are known for being reactive support. We react when somebody brings us a problem. But what can we take the step beyond that? After, when in that interaction, can we actually guide them on something more that they can do other than just overcoming this problem? So try to move a little bit more from that reactive to proactive. And also, like, if we are getting more time back in an agent's day, that's more investment that they can make in the knowledge. It's more that they can build their skills with. And then all those things will contribute back to that customer experience, and in the form of like a more highly enabled agent that's working with those customers. So I think these things all work together to drive those improvements for your team, and then ultimately reflect back to your customers.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw in the chat, Trevor said, customers feel even more like a number than a person when they don't connect with a human. I think, even better when you can start to have that white glove level experience where you're connecting with a human who's totally ready to help you out and able to handle everything that you throw at them. So at this point, we have come to the Q&A portion of our webinar. So we've got some great questions coming in the chat. And I'd love to start with this question from Melissa. It says, I'd love to hear from attendees, but we're going to pose it to the speakers as well. How are you using AI to help with onboarding and trainings to better engage and interact with users than typical 2 to 3 hour live trainings? How are you extending that onboarding?
I'm happy to start. So in terms of the onboarding process, like at Glean for our support agents, we typically start with like a rough outline of what your first 2 weeks look like. And that's like a series of tasks, a series of things like, all the stock things you do as a new employee, get your accounts, get your access, things of this nature. But then what we do is like in part of that process and then on the onboarding, we give them Glean, right? And Glean is that like that partner you have to answer the questions when you don't have your onboarding buddy with you, right? You have your onboarding buddy in that onboarding process, but then like when you need to know like, oh, what does this terminology mean? You have Glean, you can ask it questions, you can find documents, you can do things of this nature. This kind of like empowers the new employee to like not just wait for things to happen, but to gain and seek that and acquire that knowledge very, very quickly. So that's like that. Plus, when, as mentioned when we put them in the ticketing queue, like they have the Glean integration with Zendesk, so they already have like a guide as to what to do and how to handle that particular issue. This is one of the things that's actually reduced, like I'd say, like allows us to onboard our folks to our agents very, very rapidly. Right, we typically have folks in the queue within the first couple of weeks of their onboarding experience, and that's because again they feel that confidence of learning the product very quickly, filling in any knowledge gaps using Glean, and then having that in-context experience in the ticketing platform to allow them to actually work and navigate issues for customers. I know some folks might think that's a little bit aggressive, but it's also like finding the right people who have that learning mindset to to evolve this way and to be able to make their contributions early and then learn throughout their journey. Our product is evolving, our product is changing very rapidly. So that adaptability and the ability to seek and acquire and use that knowledge is quintessential to that onboarding experience.
Thanks, Greg. I think for us, it kind of goes back to this AI governance, where we have a whole plethora of mandatory trainings that employees go through, where they first understand what are the different models that we're using internally, and how can you leverage those based on what you're dealing with, depending on what function and what area in the business in which you work. I think we don't see a typical turnover and large onboarding with our technical support teams, because a lot of them come from either our business teams that inherently understand the business, and again, deep knowledge around the business lines of certain semiconductor sets. But AI in that area really falls under our governance and the trainings that are there in that space. And we really allow the agents then to use the 3 or 4 different models that we have to put their use cases into there to aid and assist them in their traditional training.
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you. So we have another question to go to. This one is from Victor, and he says, I'm most interested in how AI can shift CS from reactive to truly proactive. And I know, April, you started to talk about this a little bit in terms of how to turn call centers into revenue generators, but are there other ways to make customer service more proactive?
So yeah, I think so. I think we're starting to work in this space as well with customer experience. And so what we're trying to do is really leverage AI to understand what are all the touch points across the hybrid journeys. And I think there was another commenter in here that said the human touch is always needed. And so I think when we think about these complex journeys, there's always going to be an element of touchless, pure digital, and then there's always going to be an element where human touch is needed. And for complex journeys, it's not always one department that's handling that human touch, but it could be your sales or your account teams. It could be your quality and your support teams further down in the chain. And so right now we're leveraging AI to pull those contacts together to look at how do we surface some predictive insights that we can give to our technical support and our frontline teams so that they have a comprehensive understanding of what's happened and sort of what's the next best action. But it's pulling together all of those data points that has been really, really an invigorating and interesting journey for the CX team, not only to curate that, but how do we then present that back so that it's quick and easy and actionable for our teams?
Yeah, thank you. Greg, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, again, it's in the context of working on issues with customers, we want to be able to understand more, discover what they're working on. Sometimes it's not just about like fixing the specific issue or answering a specific question, but is to dive that next step deeper and really understand what they're really trying to achieve and accomplish. So like kind of corresponding to how a lot of folks in our support organization aspire to other roles, like maybe even in like pre-sales solutions engineering or post-sales solution architect roles, like that value of discovery and really understanding what's at the core of the problem, and then helping give more prescriptive guidance as to what to do next. Because, hey, I may have helped you solve your particular issue and overcome that issue or error, but what were you really trying to accomplish? And doing that discovery can help us give them more guidance on what they can do with the product, right? So everybody on the team is trained and uses the product day in and day out. So they have a point of view when they're talking with customers about what they can do to achieve those outcomes. So I think that's how we will like shift that tide between just being a pure reactive organization to one that can help provide that guidance, in those calls. And again, that's much more of a proactive stance and something that I think customers will see of high value when they have those interactions with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so related to that, there's a question that we got earlier on that got a lot of upvotes. I think the most upvotes of any question in here. But it's from Alexandria, and she said, I'm hoping to learn about how AI can be leveraged beyond simply note-taking, summarizing meetings, etc., really helping empower customer service teams around expansion and churn. Greg, do you have anything in particular around AI helping with expansion or reducing churn?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say kind of lean back to some of the earlier comments I made about how we use Glean inside of Zendesk, which is to give that prescriptive set of steps to resolve the particular issue. So that goes beyond like note taking and summarizing, right? That's really just prescribing like resolution steps or prescribing like keen answers and insights to customers based on what they're asking about in the issue. So I think it kind of leverages some aspects of the capabilities that you mentioned there. But again, when you as an agent are taking that issue and you feel that this guidance that you're getting from the system is grounded in your company's knowledge and procedures, you feel like that confidence. When you have that confidence, you're going to give a much better experience in that interaction with your customer. So again, like I think these are things that help you with like churn reduction in particular. But if you're talking about customer success teams in general, you really have to again, think about capabilities that are beyond the ticketing platform and how can AI work, again, with more of your other platforms. So I think if you meant see us as customer success, maybe we can clarify that. But yeah, mostly when I think about customer support, I'm thinking about enabling agents, getting them access to the knowledge they need to do their work, and getting them, again, that very crisp and clear guidance based on contextual data for them. So that's how I would think about it.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. April, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think for reducing churn, though, I think we see a little bit of a different story when we're talking about semiconductors. We have very little churn, but actually where this use case becomes beneficial is really for CX and our marketing teams to do more robust analysis, and which AI agents are helping us in that space to better inform our business teams and our divisions on how do you now maybe re-strategize your marketing plans around areas where we're seeing a potential loss of wallet share or things of that sort. So that's where we're more tackling the churn or the fighting against the contraction of wallet share. But we don't really see a lot of churn that's happening right at the front lines in the day-to-day.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think that gets to just about all the time that we have today for questions.